And are you set, Tyler?
I'm ready. Are you guys ready?
I am not.
Then it doesn't make any difference if you're ready or not. We have to
Okay.
wait for Kelsey.
Okay.
She's ready.
Okay.
Where's that
Ready?
number gonna be? Said ready as I'm ever gonna be.
Okay. Go.
Alright. Since the beginning of college sports, college athletes have never been financially rewarded for their efforts in sports. Sure, they have received scholarships, but young financially unprivileged students can't always balance school, athletics, and a job. Although most of you have never played a college sport, all of you, or not most of you, have watched or gone to a college event. This year alone, almost 80,000 people attended the Final Four semifinals this year, which set a new record for attendance for a college basketball game. My freshman year, I played softball in college. I could not play the following year because the amount of time needed to be competitive in the sport was extremely high, and a girl has to eat. Along with my personal experience, I've also done a lot of research on this topic. At college, getting an education should remain the most important. But exceptional athletes, however, it's not often their goal. Most of the time their goal is to showcase their talents for future employers. And they take usually easy bird classes. This is not setting up college students for employment down the road. The athlete will have a limited career path with few openings in professional sports every year. Some people say paying college athletes a wage will make professional athletes obsolete because more athletes will be able to, who aren't able to make it in the pros, but are still talented enough to be considered a star at a college level, will have find a means to remain in college for 4 years. The universities will benefit more if the top players have reasons to remain in college, because the students will continue to provide them with revenue from the sport, which revenues help provide universities with libraries, buildings, and also scholarships for other students. This will also allow the students to graduate with a college degree, which will allow them to have a better path for employment down the road. College sports industry generates about $11 million in annual revenues. 50 colleges report an annual revenue that exceeds about $50 million a year. Meanwhile, 5 colleges reported annual revenues of about $100 million a year. These revenues come from a number of sources, including ticket sales, sponsorship rights, and sale of broadcasting. I got the resources from an article by Dan Law in the Dayton Daily News. The NCAA also sold broadcasting rights to men's basketball tournaments for $707 million per season. Also, the Big Ten Network has its own television network now, which sells airtime to sponsors during all sporting events for men's football and men's basketball. These college sports revenues are passed along to the NCAA big executives. In 2011, the NCAA members paid their president $1.7 million in a salary. The head football coaches in 44 of the NCAA sports teams received an average of $2.1 million in salaries. And the highest paid public employee out of 40 of the 50 states is the state university head football coach or head basketball coach. The University of Alabama has the head football coach sign a contract paying him $7 million a year. That's 160 times more than your average public school teacher makes. These figures also came from Lott's article. This graph here shows a comparison between 2006 and 2008 of the salary increasing for coaches. In 2008, you see this blue one here represents 48% of the coaches that make less than $1 million a year in salary. And then in 2008, you see it now it's down to 7%. The other 4 colors are coaches that make more than $1 million a year. 3% of them making more than $4 million a year. This graph represents the University of Texas, the revenues versus the expenses for students' scholarships. The red is the revenues and the scholarship is in the blue. Obviously, you can see there's quite a difference between revenues and their expenses. This shows the average hours of that students put into their sport per week. In Divisions 1 and 2, you see the average student puts in around 40 hours per week, and it drops down to about 30 between 35 in Division 3. So as you can see, this is not just 20 hours a week. This is a full-time job for students that they're not getting paid to do. Not to mention, they're also full-time students. So this brings me to my solution. College students should be paid for participating in college sports that help them financially accommodate for their lifestyles. By giving them money they played hard to earn. The ruling for Northwestern University football players allowed them to become unionized. Part of my solution is what I feel this new union of football players should be doing when dealing with the NCAA and their college. I have a 4-step process. The step 1, according to Ben Geisling, athletes are currently losing their athletic scholarships or having them reduced because of injuries that occurred during their sports. It was just simply wrong. They should not be losing their scholarships for injuries. The second step is to make sure their scholarship is a full ride. Everything academically is paid for. Instead of a 4-year scholarship, it should move to a 5-year scholarship. This, according to an article by Mark, this would prevent coaches and the directors from, quote, firing the athletes due to injuries or poor athletic performances reasons when they're still excelling in their classrooms. The third step would be to limit weekday games. Most football sports games are hosted on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights, which does not leave much time for a student to study during the week for their exams, which are usually held during the week, not the weekends. The fourth and final step would be to allow the students to make money off their fame. According to a study by the National College Players Association and the Drexel University Sports Management Department, football and men's basketball players at top sports schools are being denied at least $6.2 million between the years of 2011 and 2015 under the NCAA rules that prohibit them from being paid for their fame. Admittedly, paying salaries to students is a very complex and challenging solution, but allowing these athletes to receive money from outside sources other than the athletic department is much more straightforward and can happen very quickly. It's time to let the student athletes benefit from their fame and likeness like every other student at our colleges and universities. Let them take endorsement money from the coaches, their coaches do that lead them. So if a local auto parts store wants to pay a college student to sign autographs for 2 hours during a store sale, they should be allowed to do that. The Olympics have dumped this rule and they allowed athletes to make money for their abilities and the world didn't end. So I don't see why college athletes can't do it as well. The idea that people put in work and didn't get paid a currency that the market should be bearing out, and we're not talking about NBA stars that make $15 million a year. We're talking about the little guy who gets paid nothing. Is this a foolproof plan? Definitely not, but it's a start. The idea of reward these athletes for their time, their sweat, and their blood. This would help them financially in the future and allow them to eat a decent meal while in school. The Northwestern football players have stepped up, and now we need all their small walks of the earth to join in the fight. So I'd like to invite you to sign the petition I emailed in to you guys earlier today, and help the students collect the money and get compensation that's rightfully theirs. Thank you.
Now, I came to class a little early tonight, so I didn't get your email, and I didn't get
send mine out yet because it wouldn't my student email was not working. So
Yeah, this morning-
I'm gonna
I
try
sent it
sending
around
it
like
from.
3:30, I think.
Okay, yeah, I had left already then.
I'm
Just-
gonna try sending it from here because it was being funky today. I don't
Well,
know.
and the email was down this morning for a bit too, because I know I was trying to
Yeah,
get
'cause I
on.
tried
I
doing
saw
that this
that I
morning.
got it from myself. So
Okay, good,
the rest
okay.
of the
Yeah, I
class-
emailed myself too, and I'm like, I can do this.
Yeah, it just depends on which button you hit, because if you hit all student users, I wouldn't get it. So I
Oh,
want to be able to see
I
it.
think
So-
I need to.
Okay, yeah, so you could, if I don't get yours, I'll send you an email and say, please send it to me as well.
Okay.
I think I sent all users.
I did all student users.
Yeah.
Now you say that, I bet.
Yeah, I did that too, so that's kind of good to know.
Kelsey, did your 4-step plan, was that in yours, or did you add that afterward? I'm just, I think you may have paraphrased some of the things. So like, is this part of that 4-step plan?
Yeah, these are all part of it.
Yeah,
I
okay.
just broke it down more.
Thanks.
Made it
Okay.
more logical.
Yep.
I realized in my outline that it didn't make a whole lot of sense after I
There's
listened
two
to it.
people, huh?
There are 10 people giving speeches tonight?
Pardon now?
10 people giving speeches?
Yeah, we have 3 gone. You want to hear the reasons why?
Back surgery.
That's one. Mike and his fiance lost 3 grandparents in less than a week.
In like 3 days.
So,
I know, yeah.
he's off to California to his own grandfather's. That last weekend they were in Missouri for one of her grandmothers, and then her other grandmother died this week. And Jim has a temperature of 102, and he's not here infecting us with his sinus
Thank you.
infection. Thank you, Jim.
That's very nice.
I'm gonna have to start
Oh, and you
bringing.
didn't have a link or a Dropbox, did you, either for like,
Presentations.
yeah, like if we had a PowerPoint or anything? So I was trying to find one today.
Well, the persuasive folder was still open where you named your topic
Oh, I
or
guess
stuff
I
like
put
that.
it
You
in
could have
there.
just, yeah, I
Email
figured
it to
you stuck it
yourself.
in there.
Well, I have
Or
my
emailed
flash
you.
drive.
That's fine.
So I
Not
just
a
put it in
problem.
grass.
Speaking of flash drives, is my blue one?
Is it, now, let's see, it's after 5:30, so 1, 2, 3. I would think
No.
Galen should be here. And
That's
who
what mine,
else?
that's what I did mine as.
He's probably the only one that we're missing. Persephone, Galen, Persephone.
They're white cheddar popcorn balls. Use a cup to scoop it into.
Here's Persephone. Is Galen out there too? Okay.
He's usually late, so.